Let me tell you something that might shake up everything you thought you knew about success. I've watched thousands of people over the years, and here's what I've noticed. Some folks work themselves to the bone, putting in 60, 70 hours a week, and they barely scrape by. Then you've got others who seem to work less, stress less, and somehow they're making 2, 3, 10 times as much. What's the difference? It's not luck. It's not connections, though those help. The difference is they figured out something most people never learn. You don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to the hour. Think about that for a moment. Really let it sink in. You can work 8 hours a day, but if you're bringing minimum value to those 8 hours, you'll get minimum pay. Someone else works the same 8 hours but brings extraordinary value, and they get extraordinary pay. The marketplace doesn't care how hard you work. It doesn't care how tired you are at the end of the day. It only cares about one thing: what are you worth? And here's the challenge that most people never face. What you're worth is directly tied to who you've become. Now let me take you back to when I was 25 years old. I was working at a department store, and I thought I was doing pretty well. I was showing up on time, doing my job, following all the rules. But I was broke. I mean really broke. I had pennies in my pocket, nothing in the bank. One day my mentor, Earl Schoaf, asked me a question that changed my life. He said, "Jim, how much money are you making?" I told him, and he just looked at me and said, "That's all you're worth right now." Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him about how hard I was working, about the hours I was putting in. But he stopped me and said something I'll never forget. If you want to have more, you must become more. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. That conversation started me on a path that took me from being broken in debt to becoming financially independent within 6 years. But here's what I learned. It wasn't about working more hours at my job. It was about working more hours on myself. See, I was spending all my time trying to figure out how to do my job better, how to sell more, how to work harder. But I wasn't spending any time trying to become better. I wasn't reading books. I wasn't learning new skills. I wasn't developing my mind or my character. I was just showing up and doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Here's a principle I want you to write down and never forget. Income rarely exceeds personal development. Let me say that again because it's crucial. Your income will rarely exceed your level of personal development. Why? Because the marketplace pays for value, and you can only bring value consistent with who you've become. If you're a $5,000 a year person, you'll find a way to make about $5,000. If you become a $50,000 a year person, opportunities that pay $50,000 will start showing up. And if you develop yourself into a $500,000 a year person, you'll be amazed at how the marketplace finds you and rewards you accordingly. Now, some people hear this and they get defensive. They say, "Jim, I work just as hard as my boss, but he makes 3 times what I make. That's not fair." And you know what? They're right about one thing. They might work just as hard. But working hard on your job will make you a living. Working hard on yourself will make you a fortune. There's a massive difference between those two things, and most people never understand it. They spend 40 years working hard on their job, climbing the ladder, putting in the hours, and they wonder why they're not wealthy. It's because they never invested in the most valuable asset they have, themselves. Let me give you a real example that illustrates this perfectly. I knew 2 people who started working at the same company on the same day in the same position. 5 years later, one of them was still in the same position, making basically the same money, maybe a small cost of living increase. The other one had been promoted 3 times and was making 4 times as much. Same company, same starting point. What made the difference? The second person spent 30 minutes every morning before work reading and learning. He listened to educational content during his commute. He took every training opportunity the company offered. He asked questions. He observed successful people and learned from them. He worked on himself while the first person just worked on his job. The first person would show up, do his work, go home, watch television, and repeat. Nothing wrong with that if you're satisfied with where you are. But he wasn't satisfied. He complained constantly about not making enough money, about not getting promoted, about the company not appreciating him. But here's the truth. The company was paying him exactly what he was worth to them. He hadn't increased his value. He was the same person year after year, so he got the same results year after year. This is what I call the compound effect of personal development. When you work on your job, you make incremental improvements in your output. Maybe you get a little faster, a little more efficient. That's worth something, but not much. But when you work on yourself, you make exponential improvements in your capability. You don't just get a little better at what you do, you become capable of doing entirely new things. You develop judgment, wisdom, skills, and character that multiply everything you touch. Think about it this way. If you improve your job performance by 5%, you might get a 5% raise. But if you improve yourself by becoming more knowledgeable, more skilled, more emotionally intelligent, more disciplined, you don't get a 5% increase in results. You might get a 50% increase, a 100% increase, or even more. Why? Because personal development doesn't just make you better at your current job. It makes you ready for opportunities that don't even exist yet in your life. The truth is, most people create an invisible ceiling for themselves. They hit a certain level and they just stop growing. They think they've learned enough, they know enough, they're good enough, and that becomes their ceiling. Their income plateaus, their career plateaus, their life plateaus. Not because of the economy, not because of their company, not because of their circumstances, because they stopped working on themselves. They stopped growing. And when you stop growing, you stop earning. When you stop learning, you stop earning. That's just how it works. Here's what I want you to understand. You are the problem, but you're also the solution. If you're not making the money you want to make, if you're not living the life you want to live, if you're not getting the results you want to get, the problem isn't out there. It's in here. It's in the person you've become up to this point. You can't change the economy. You can't change your boss. You can't change the weather. You can't change the marketplace. But you can absolutely change yourself. And when you change, everything changes for you. The question isn't whether you need to change. The question is, are you willing to do what it takes to become more valuable? Are you willing to invest in yourself the way you invest in your job? Are you willing to work as hard on your personal development as you work on your daily tasks? Because I'm telling you, if you'll spend as much time working on yourself as you do working on your job, your life will change so fast it'll make your head spin. The marketplace is starving for valuable people. If you become more valuable, the marketplace will pay you more. It's that simple. Not easy, but simple. Now that you understand why personal development matters, let me show you where to focus your energy. Because here's the thing, most people want to change their lives, but they don't know where to start. They try to change everything at once and end up changing nothing. So let me break this down for you in a way that makes sense. There are 6 key areas of self-development that when you work on them consistently will transform everything in your life. And here's the beautiful part, they all work together. Each one makes the others stronger. Let me start with the most important one, your philosophy. Your philosophy is how you think about life. It's your beliefs, your perspective, your way of looking at the world. And here's why it matters so much. Your philosophy shapes your attitude shapes your actions, and your actions shape your results. If you want to change your results, you can't just change your actions. You've got to go all the way back to the beginning and change your philosophy. Because if you've got a faulty philosophy, you'll get faulty results. It's like trying to build a mansion on a cracked foundation. It doesn't matter how nice the house looks. Eventually, everything comes tumbling down. So how do you develop a better philosophy? You've got to feed your mind. You've got to read. You've got to learn. You've got to expose yourself to ideas that challenge you and stretch you. I call books the poor man's university. For less than the cost of a meal, you can download into your mind the wisdom of someone who spent 20, 30, 40 years learning something. Think about that. 20 years of experience for $10. That's the best investment you'll ever make. Let me tell you what happened to me. When I was 25 and broke, my mentor told me I needed to start reading. I said, I don't like to read. He said, that explains why you're broke. That stung, but he was right. So I started reading, and within 5 years, I'd read hundreds of books. And you know what? Those books changed my philosophy. They changed how I thought about money, about success, about relationships, about life. And when my philosophy changed, everything else started to change too. My income went from nothing to financial independence in 6 years. That's the power of working on your mind. The second area is your skills. You've got to become more valuable in the marketplace. Now, skills are different from philosophy. Philosophy is how you think. Skills are what you can do. And the marketplace pays for what you can do. If you can only do minimum wage work, you'll get minimum wage pay. But if you develop skills that are rare and valuable, you'll get paid accordingly. The question is, what skills are you developing? Are you learning? Are you getting better? Or are you just repeating the same year of experience over and over? Here's what happens to most people. They get a job, they learn enough to get by, and then they stop learning. They've got 10 years of experience, but really it's 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. There's no growth, no development, no increase in value, and then they wonder why they're not making more money. Well, if you're not worth more, you won't make more. It's that simple. But if you'll commit to getting better every single day, if you'll develop new skills, sharpen old ones, learn new technologies, master new techniques, you'll become so valuable that opportunities will chase you down. The third area is your emotions and your attitude. This is huge. You can have all the philosophy and all the skills in the world, but if you can't manage your emotions, if you can't control your attitude, you're going to sabotage yourself. I teach something I call the thermostat versus thermometer concept. A thermometer reacts to the environment. If it's cold, it goes down. If it's hot, it goes up. But a thermostat sets the temperature. It decides what the temperature should be and makes it happen. Most people are thermometers. When things are good, they feel good. When things are bad, they feel bad. Their emotions go up and down based on circumstances. But successful people are thermostats. They decide how they're going to feel, how they're going to show up, how they're going to respond, regardless of what's happening around them. Let me tell you about a time when I learned this lesson the hard way. Early in my career, I had a massive setback. Lost a lot of money on a deal that went south. For weeks, I was devastated. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My attitude was terrible, and it was affecting everything else in my life. Then one day, I realized something. I was giving my circumstances complete control over my emotions. I was being a thermometer. So I made a decision. I decided that no matter what happened on the outside, I was going to maintain my equilibrium on the inside. That decision changed everything. Not the circumstances, but my response. And when I changed my response, new opportunities started showing up that I couldn't see before because I was too busy being upset. The fourth area is your health and energy. You cannot perform at your best if you're running on empty. Your body is the vehicle that carries your mind through life. If the vehicle breaks down, it doesn't matter how good the driver is. Now, I'm not talking about being a bodybuilder or running marathons, unless that's your thing. I'm talking about basic health, eating reasonably well, moving your body, getting enough sleep, managing your stress. These things matter because they affect everything else. When you feel good physically, you think better, you have more energy, you're more creative, you're more productive, you can handle more stress, you're more pleasant to be around. Your health is the foundation that everything else is built on. The fifth area is your communication and influence. Ideas are worthless if you can't share them. You've got to learn how to communicate effectively, how to speak with clarity, how to write persuasively, how to listen deeply, how to influence without manipulating, how to inspire people to take action. Every great achievement in life requires the cooperation of other people. And you get people to cooperate by communicating effectively. The better you get at communication, the more influence you have. And the more influence you have, the more value you bring to every situation. The sixth and final area is your character and integrity. This is the foundation that everything else is built on. You can have philosophy, skills, emotional mastery, great health, and amazing communication abilities. But if you lack character, if you cut corners, if you lie, if you cheat, if you manipulate, eventually it all comes crashing down. Character is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. It's keeping your word even when it costs you. It's being honest even when a lie would be easier. Character takes years to build and seconds to destroy. But when you have it, people trust you. And trust is the currency of success. Now here's what's fascinating about these 6 areas. They all interconnect. They multiply each other's effects. When you improve your philosophy, it affects your attitude. When you improve your skills, it affects your confidence. When you master your emotions, it affects your health. When you develop your character, it affects your communication. They're not separate compartments. They're all part of the same system. And when you work on all of them consistently, the compound effect is extraordinary. You don't just get 6 times better. You get exponentially better. You become a completely different person. And when you become a different person, you get different results. But here's the challenge. Knowing what to work on is one thing. Actually doing it is something else entirely. Most people know they should read more, learn more, take care of their health, work on their attitude. They know these things, but they don't do them. And knowledge without action is worthless. So the real question isn't what you should work on. The real question is, will you actually do it? Will you make the commitment? Will you put in the time? Will you be consistent? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. So let's talk about how you actually make this happen. Because theory without practice is just philosophy, and we need results. What I'm about to share with you is what I call the slight edge philosophy. It's based on a simple truth. Success is a few simple disciplines repeated daily, while failure is a few errors in judgment repeated daily. The difference between success and failure isn't dramatic. It's not some massive action you take one time. It's small things you do every single day that most people think don't matter. Here's what I mean. Reading 10 pages of a good book doesn't seem like much. Missing 1 day of reading doesn't seem like it will hurt you. And you're right, it won't. But here's the thing, not reading 10 pages a day is easy to do. And it's also easy not to do. Eating a healthy meal is easy to do. So is eating junk food. Working out is easy to do. So is sitting on the couch. The things that are easy to do are also easy not to do. And that's where most people mess up. They think it's just 1 day. It doesn't matter. But it does matter. Because 1 day becomes 2 days, becomes a week, becomes a month, becomes a year, becomes a lifetime. The biggest reason people fail isn't because they make huge mistakes. It's because they major in minor things. They spend their time on things that don't matter and neglect the things that do. They'll spend 3 hours watching television but say they don't have 30 minutes to read. They'll spend money on things that depreciate but won't invest in things that appreciate, like their own education. They'll work 40 hours a week on their job but won't work 40 minutes a week on their future. And then they look up 5 years later and wonder why nothing has changed. Let me ask you something. Where will you be in 5 years if you don't change what you're doing today? Really think about that. If you keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, if you keep the same habits, the same routines, the same disciplines or lack thereof, where will you be? You'll be in the same place or worse. That's a guarantee. But if you start today with just a few simple disciplines, if you commit to working on yourself every single day, even just 30 minutes a day, where could you be in 5 years? You could be completely transformed. You could be living a totally different life. Here's the math, and it's powerful. 30 minutes a day is 3.5 hours a week. That's about 15 hours a month, 180 hours a year. In 5 years, that's 900 hours of personal development. Do you know what you can learn in 900 hours? You can become an expert. You can master multiple skills. You can read hundreds of books. You can completely transform who you are, all from 30 minutes a day. But most people won't do it. They'll say they don't have time. They have time to scroll on their phone for 2 hours, but not 30 minutes to work on themselves. So let me give you something practical. Create a morning routine that changes everything. Here's what I did and what I teach. Get up a little earlier than you need to. Use that first hour for yourself, not for your job, not for other people, for you. Read for 20 minutes. Something educational, something that challenges your thinking, something that makes you better. Then take 10 minutes to plan your day. Not just what you need to do, but who you need to become. What are you working on in yourself today? What skill are you developing? What habit are you building? Then spend the last 30 minutes on something that develops you, whether that's exercise, learning a new skill, working on a project, or anything else that makes you more valuable. And here's another thing that costs you nothing but pays enormous dividends. Change what you listen to during your commute. Most people listen to music or talk radio. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not making you better. What if you use that time to learn, to listen to educational content, to hear from people who've accomplished what you want to accomplish? If you've got a 30-minute commute each way, that's an hour a day, 5 hours a week, 250 hours a year, you could complete multiple university courses with that time. You could learn a new language. You could study success principles from dozens of successful people, all time you're already spending. You're just changing what you're putting into your mind during that time. Now, let me tell you about something that changed my life, keeping a journal. Every day I write down the lessons I'm learning, the ideas I'm getting, the things I'm observing. This does two things. First, it forces you to reflect. When you write something down, you think about it more deeply, you capture it, you own it. Second, it gives you a record of your growth. You can look back 6 months later and see how far you've come, what you were struggling with, what you learned. That journal becomes your personal textbook of life lessons. I've got journals going back decades, and they're worth more to me than any college degree. Here's something else most people get wrong. They only set achievement goals. They want to make a certain amount of money, get a promotion, lose weight, whatever. Those are fine, but they're not enough. You need personal growth goals. Who do you want to become? What character qualities do you want to develop? What skills do you want to master? What weaknesses do you want to strengthen? See, achievement goals are about what you get. Growth goals are about who you become. And who you become is infinitely more important than what you get, because who you become determines what you'll be able to keep and what you'll be able to do with what you get. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. I knew a man who won a lottery, millions of dollars. He thought all his problems were solved. 5 years later, he was broke again. How is that possible? He got the money, but he hadn't become the person who could handle that level of wealth. He still had the same poor financial philosophy, the same lack of discipline, the same inability to say no to people. So the money slipped right through his fingers. Compare that to someone who builds wealth slowly over time through personal development. They've developed the philosophy, the discipline, the wisdom, the character. If they lose the money, they can make it back because they've become the person who creates wealth. That's the difference between goal setting and growth setting. One focuses on getting, the other on becoming. And becoming is far more powerful because it's permanent. Once you become something, it's yours forever. Nobody can take it away. The economy can't take it. Your boss can't take it. Circumstances can't take it. Who you've become is yours to keep. Now, here's something critical. You've got to learn from everyone. Successful people, unsuccessful people, books, experiences, even your mistakes. Everything is a learning opportunity if you're paying attention. I learned as much from observing what not to do as I did from studying successful people. Find mentors, even if they're not physically present. Read their books, study their lives, model their habits. But also pay attention to people who are struggling. What are they doing wrong? What beliefs are holding them back? What habits are hurting them? Learn from their mistakes so you don't have to make all of them yourself. And speaking of learning from others, you've got to be careful about who you spend time with. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you hang around 5 broke people, you'll be the 6th. If you hang around 5 successful people, you'll be the 6th. Not because they give you money or opportunities, though they might, but because they influence your thinking, your philosophy, your standards, your habits. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Here's what most people don't realize. There's a cost to neglecting personal development. It's not just that you don't grow, it's that you fall behind. The world is changing. Technology is advancing. Skills that were valuable 10 years ago are worthless today. If you're not learning, you're not staying in place, you're going backwards. You're becoming less valuable in a marketplace that's becoming more competitive. And eventually, that catches up with you. The job disappears. The opportunity vanishes. The security you thought you had evaporates. Not because you did something wrong, but because you didn't do something right. You didn't invest in staying valuable. But here's the exciting part. It's easier to get better than it stays the same. Once you start the process of personal development, once you start reading and learning and growing, something happens. You build momentum. It gets easier. You start to enjoy it. You see results, and that motivates you to keep going. Success breeds success. Growth leads to more growth. It's like pushing a boulder up a hill at first, but once you get to the top, gravity works with you instead of against you. The hardest part is making the decision and starting. After that, momentum takes over. Now let me tell you about the ultimate payoff of all this personal development work. It's not just about making more money, though that will happen. It's not just about getting promotions or achieving goals, though those things will come too. The real payoff is that you become the kind of person who attracts success. You become magnetic to opportunities. And here's why. The law of attraction isn't some mystical, magical thing. It's about becoming attractive to the things you want. When you develop yourself, when you become more valuable, more skilled, more disciplined, more knowledgeable, opportunities that would have passed you by suddenly become visible to you. Let me tell you what happened to me. After years of working on myself, of reading and learning and growing, I went back to the same city where I'd struggled years before. Same streets, same buildings, same businesses, but everything looked different. They were always there, but I couldn't see them because I wasn't developed enough to recognize them. My eyes were open, but I was blind. Once I changed, once I grew, the same environment looked completely different. Success leaves clues everywhere, but you must be developed enough to recognize them. Here's a truth that took me years to understand. Opportunities pass by people who aren't ready to receive them. You could be standing next to $1 million opportunity and not even know it because you haven't developed the awareness to see it. You haven't developed the skills to execute it. You haven't developed the character to be trusted with it. The marketplace is constantly testing you, seeing if you're ready. And when you finally are ready, when you've done the work on yourself, opportunities don't just show up, they multiply. They come from directions you never expected. And here's what else happens. Your personal growth creates a ripple effect. When you get better, everyone around you benefits. Your family benefits because you're a better spouse, a better parent, a better example. Your team benefits because you're a better leader, a better colleague, a better contributor. Your community benefits because you're a better citizen, a better neighbor, a better role model. Personal development isn't selfish. It's actually the most unselfish thing you can do, because the better you become, the more you have to give to others. Working on yourself also shifts you from scarcity thinking to abundance thinking. When you know you're valuable, when you know you can create value, you stop worrying about not having enough. You stop competing for crumbs. You start creating your own opportunities. You start seeing possibilities instead of problems. That mental shift alone is worth more than any amount of money because it changes how you show up in every situation. The ultimate freedom in life is having choices, and you get choices by being valuable. When you're valuable enough, you can choose where you work, who you work with, what projects you take on, how you spend your time. You're not desperate. You're not stuck. You're not trapped. You have options, and options give you power. Not power over other people, but power over your own life. That's real freedom. Here's the guarantee I can give you, and it's the only guarantee in life that's worth anything. Life rewards those who invest in becoming more. Not sometimes, not occasionally, always. It's a law as reliable as gravity. If you become more valuable, you will receive more value. If you become more skilled, you will have more opportunities. If you become more disciplined, you will achieve more results. The universe, the marketplace, life itself conspires to reward those who do the work on themselves. So here's my challenge to you. Start today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when things calm down or when you have more time. Today, pick one discipline, just one. Maybe it's reading 10 pages a day. Maybe it's working out for 20 minutes. Maybe it's listening to something educational during your commute. Whatever it is, start today and do it every day for the next 90 days. Don't break the chain. Let that one discipline become your foundation, and then add another. Build slowly but consistently. Here's the final truth I want to leave you with. You cannot change your circumstances, the seasons, the wind, or how other people act. But you can change yourself, and that changes everything. When you change, your family changes. When your family changes, your neighborhood changes. When your neighborhood changes, your city changes. When your city changes, your nation changes. When your nation changes, the world changes. It all starts with you working on you. Not just your job, you. That's where the real power is. That's where the transformation begins. Make that commitment today, and I promise you, 5 years from now, you'll be living a life you can't even imagine right now.